similar moment happens on many time teams. That is, we've been chasing John's tail all day to get out and do the geophysics. He's rushed around with his team. He finally brings it back in.
What is team?
You always like to mention your team, but not on this occasion. I'm talking about normal.
They're in the pub in Yorkshire.
In a pub in Yorkshire. So John, in this case, on his own, has been rushing around. And
while you were eating your lunch, the cream teas in the warm rooms.
It might take some time.
Pleased to know it's stopped raining.
Thank you. Order. So what's going to happen is that we're going to see the geophysics. I've not seen it. Phil's not seen it. John is going to put it up. And what will happen then, I hope, is that... where's Carl? Carl, you want to get over here when you've sorted your bits out? We will then have a conversation effectively, sort of slightly ignoring you at one level, at which we say, what is the strategy for placing a trench? I don't know what the answer to that is yet. I normally say to John, where do you think? He says, I'm not an archaeologist at that point. And we then talk to Phil, we talk to Mick, and we try and make a decision.
In real time, Tim, what would happen is we'd get to this teasy moment and then Tony would say, you're not seeing the results tonight, join us after the break. And we would not get
You're right.
I'm off to the pub. This is real life.
We've got the main subcircular feature there on the aerial photograph. I've done a strip 100 metres long and 40 metres wide.
Is that all?
Phil, don't heckle. Can you imagine trying to run time team meetings? It's always like this. Carry on, John.
This is the first time it has been revealed in public to the whole world. What I'm going to do...
I hope this machine works at this point.
Show you a 20 metre strip by 40, by 100 to start with.
Ooh, tease. Now what you're seeing there, you can't see those features on the surface. So we're going, in Tim's terms, we're going down that next layer to something that exists, and it exists at strong enough levels with mag, John?
With mag.
So you're getting magnetic anomalies.
What we're looking at here is, that's the 20 metre width, that's the 100 metre length. At the top is north, and that's where the road is. Now on the aerial photograph, you've got the sort of big ring that does that, and then various other features coming on.
So for the benefit of everybody, the black is the ditch.
The black is the ditch.
And is the white the bank?
The white is probably just a magnetic anomaly. What you tend to get is a shadow effect. Where you have a strong magnetic response, you'll have a weak negative shadow. And depending on where you are, that'll either be to the north or it'll be to the east and the west. But let's have a look at the next block. So all I'm doing now is adding on another 20 metres to the east.
Blimey.
So, obviously the ditch continuing round, this ditch clearly has some relationship. It appears to abut there. It appears to form a terminal to that. There is a second ditch on the inside here.
There's a smaller division, isn't there?
There's odd things. There's a small feature there.
John, are you getting high mag spikes from those two blobs?
No, they're looking very pit-like.
Yeah.
It's slightly intriguing that you've got that there, potentially that there. Now, just quickly
John,
to insight, there are a couple of serious points. I mean,
good.
When I look at the data, I initially said to Tim, I'm sure it's settlement because it's so strong. But we're on the sort of geology here, and we get this down in Cornwall. we tend to get very strong responses because of the local magnetic geology. So it could be that you don't have intensive burning here, it's purely because it's a rock cut feature. And so there is an argument that it might not be settlement, that it might be ritual, and could it be henge, and could it be...
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, right,
So
thank you.
it's rather than rubbish pits.
Carl, first thoughts?
I'm glad it confirms the aerial photographs.
Like, the point is,
Yeah.
Carl, there it is.
Yeah.
What does this remind you of from other Cornish sites, or what's your inclination on this?
From the geophysics surveys and that I've seen at other ones, it strikes me as being very similar to some Cornish Iron Age rounds for settlement. But having said that, there does seem to be not so much in the way of activity so far on the interior. That's
We're not seeing any roundhouses,
No,
for
exactly.
instance. At Gear, when we had this, there was lots of little circles.
And what's that? What's that little ditch? What's that
Oh.
ditch round there?
Well, you'd like to think that it's going
What
to
what sort of diameter is that going to be, John?
Well, from there to there is about 15 metres. So
it's
it
roundhouse size.
Sorry?
Could be roundhouse
Could be
size.
roundhouse size, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
A big roundhouse.
yeah.
The issue we also have here is very similar to Moments in Time Team, where John gives us this first piece of geophys. Mick and I look at it with Phil, and we say, well, do we want to make a decision now? And I usually at that point say to John, would you mind going out and doing another strip?
While everyone stays in the wall.
While everybody stays in the warm, we have the candlelit drinking and that sort of thing. If this was all John was able to do, my inclination at this point, you know, thinking about other sites we've done, I think it's a bit of a tough ask for us to take on a boundary at this stage. That might be quite deep, quite problematical. We might stand a chance of coming down onto the goal we've got for this archaeology, and this is Phil's thing about strategy, is to excavate enough soil around to get a sense of the depth of where the archaeology begins. I think it's what we can do. Along the way, that will probably produce finds, but my inclination would be, on other sites, we've looked at one of these and said, well, it's a clear feature, there's more than one of these, we should be able to come down onto this. If it is a pit, on similar sites, they've been full of all sorts of material. Closure deposits, we've found Iron Age quernstones as the final thing or something put in it. Phil, what would you think if we were just dealing with that scan as we see it
Well,
now?
I mean, I mean, I totally agree with you that the ditch, I don't think is a runner. I mean, if John is going to do another a spit, whether or not, if that roundhousey thing turns out to be a roundhouse, whether or not it mightn't be nice to have a little look-see at that. If it turns out to be a roundhouse gully, it might be manageable that we can get a section across it, actually get down into it, and that we might actually find a few odds and ends of pottery. And particularly if John, if he can do another one, and if we could find an entrance, we could then define where the entrance was and seeing if there's any pottery in there. That's just another alternative.
I don't know how far over the entrance would be on the...
Well, in theory, you'd expect it to be here.
Somewhere in there is going to be sort of on the south or southeast side, you know, if
Okay.
it's that sort of size.
Well,
Just
Go on,
one-
yeah, sorry,
Just
Tim.
one thing that's sticking through my head is I'm trying to think of other enclosures where there is a single roundhouse in the middle of the enclosure. Normally there'd be to one side, and I can't think of any.
it is oddly symmetrical, this thing, isn't it?
I agree completely. So in most cases where we've got a round with just one obvious building, it's usually offset. It's very
Yeah.
rare.
Okay, well look, we've got 10 minutes. I would conclude by saying, yes, I think I'm absolute agreement with Phil. I'd be guided by him anyway. I think in the time we've got left, we don't want to take on a pit because that can have shed loads of stuff in it. if that is a central feature and we can date that, then we'll have achieved quite a lot in what is basically going to be one day's digging.